Con ustedes, KRUPA SRIVATSAN, Product Marketing Director de Infoblox.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's joining us today on this presentation for MAPS IT Solutions Day 2021. I'm super excited to present this topic on secure cloud-first network experience. My name is KRUPA SRIVATSAN, Director of Product Marketing for Cybersecurity at Infoblox. And today I'm going to walk you through some of the challenges and demands of the modern workplace, the new workplace of the future, hybrid workplace, whatever we want to call it. It's not the workplace of the past, right? So there are several changes happening as we speak, and network demands are changing. And these type of modernization efforts and initiatives come with challenges. So we will talk about what those challenges are. And I will also walk you through some of the capabilities of Infoblox for those of you who've not heard of Infoblox. Infoblox is a DNS, DHCP, and IP address management vendor. We've been a market leader in this space, and we've been in business for well over 20 years. But more importantly, I think I want to talk about some of the innovations and some of the differentiation and how Infoblox can provide a modernized foundation, not just for networking, but for security as well. As we all know, security continues to be a challenge in today's distributed environments, work from home, work from anywhere scenarios. And so we will talk about how all those scenarios can be secured in a more efficient way using some of the technologies that we offer. And then, of course, we will talk about some use cases as well. So going back to what our demands are today, right? There are major trends that are forcing more of the cloud-first adoption of cloud-first and SaaS-based solutions, right? Both for large companies as well as small companies. Number one thing is work from anywhere, right? The biggest trend, and of course it started because of the pandemic, but it's been happening even before that, but it's accelerated this work from anywhere notion and mandate so that we keep our employees safe and provide them the flexibility. And this has caused huge demands on enterprise networks. Obviously, it has increased the attack surface. We're now, having to protect employees and users anywhere and everywhere they work from, either from home or from Starbucks or any common kind of work environment, not just inside the office. The second shift is about SaaS and adoption of SaaS. It has definitely skyrocketed significantly in the last few years, and more so in the last year and a half, 2 years, with over half of IT spending expected to shift to cloud and SaaS by 2024. So this is here to stay. It's going to even get more pronounced in the coming years. And that means that organizations need to allow their obviously work from home users to access the internet. They don't always VPN back into a data center to access applications, because now they're using SaaS applications. Remote offices, branch offices now need direct internet access for a better SaaS experience, because if they're going to hairpin all the traffic back to the data center, that is going to cause latency and poor user experience. So the SaaS everywhere approach adds to the network demands. And thirdly, it's IP everywhere, right? We've got a plethora of IoT devices. I think I saw a statistic that said, 9 billion of IoT devices in the next few years. Everything is on the internet, not just at home, but, manufacturing. Think of operational technology, OT, right? Almost everything these days are kind of smart devices, which means they're connecting to the internet and they're sharing data, sending data, and obviously it's for improvement in operations, efficiency, things like that. But it also means that it needs to be connected, it needs to be managed, it needs to be secure. And so those challenges are coming to the forefront as well as we talk about shifting network demands. Before I move on, I just want to talk about this particular statistic from Gartner. We hear about cloud first, we hear about cloud, based things like that. And this cloud first notion, the notion that not everything has to be within a data center, not all your applications have to be in the data center, is a significant trend. And about 85% of employees, 85% of enterprises will have a cloud first approach by 2025. Again, all of these things mean that network demands are changing. Users want a different experience. Users want a better experience as they're working in their day-to-day job. So we talked about trends. We talked about kind of some of the statistics around those trends, but these trends come with challenges. Most companies have initiatives around cloud first or SaaS or work from anywhere or all three. And so what they are having to deal with is certain challenges that come with modernization of the network. When you look at kind of traditional 10, 15 years ago, traditional way that the network was architected, you had all your applications in the HQ or data center, your employees were in HQ, your branch offices were sending all the traffic to the HQ network. Work from home employees, even if they were not that many as we see today, they were work from home employees in the past, and they would either VPN to access applications, right? So it was a very kind of tightly controlled, centralized approach to networking. And what we're seeing today is that, like I mentioned, because of the SaaS, because of cloud first, trends and initiatives, it's a more decentralized world in the modern world, right? Increasing reliance on SaaS, public cloud infrastructure, right? You've got your Azure and AWS and Oracle. A lot of the applications are residing in the public cloud. Yes, there is some applications and data still contained within the data center, and people still need to access that. But a significant portion of the workloads have shifted to cloud. And so what happens is your underlying infrastructure or underlying network services, which is like your DNS, DHCP, IP address management. Now that is decentralized. So DNS is the way you connect to anything and everything. Your email, your website, your applications, all of them need DNS to work for connectivity. And so, now in this modern world, you've got a different DNS and DHCP type services in your HQ. You've got a different set of services in the cloud infrastructure, different services at home. You may be using your service provider's DNS, and then in your branch offices. So we see this kind of decentralized approach. And what happens is the IT admins lose control, because now you've got remote users, cloud workloads, everything relying on different disparate DHCP and DNS services. There is very little automation or interconnectivity or centralized control for these services. The second thing is visibility. Now, we all know that visibility is paramount if you want to make sure everything is secure, right? And when you have such a distributed environment and modern environment, there is some visibility that's lost, right? Work from home users may become invisible, so to speak, to enterprise inventory systems. It's also difficult to manage devices in remote offices, branch offices that are directly connecting to the internet, right? You may not always see what's happening in those locations because they are not happening the traffic back to a data center. So that visibility becomes a challenge, which leads to our third situation, which is security, right? We all know that the perimeters vanish. There is no perimeters to speak of. People are accessing directly internet locations, destinations. Data is distributed everywhere. Back 10, 15 years ago, most of the critical data was in a data center. Now it's everywhere. It's on employee devices. It's in the cloud. It's at remote locations. So data security becomes a challenge. Attack surface has increased. And so what happens is your traditional thick security stack that used to protect your HQ and data center networks no longer cover or secure these distributed locations. And so that becomes a challenge. And also remediation. How do you make sure that, once a breach has happened or an attack has happened, how do you quickly identify which part of the network is affected? What's the scope of the breach? And then how can you mitigate or remediate those threats quickly before further damage is caused? So all of those things are challenges in today's modern networks. And when you look at, your kind of traditional organizations, customers, partners, right, employees, what do they demand from a really good network, right, that is modern? And what they demand is superior customer experience, right? They need simplicity, right? They want to make sure that everything they're working on, the networks are transparent and seamless. It should not matter what device they're using or where they're working from. Everything should just work. The experience is paramount, right? Reliability. You can't have mission critical work done when your network is not reliable. And this is across the board in most verticals and most industries, right? It has to always be on, always be working. Scalability is a big issue. Now, we all saw when the pandemic hit and a lot of us shifted to work from home, significant amount of the workforce shifted to work from home. And so scalability became an issue back then. How do we provide connectivity and security for all of these thousands of workers working no longer in the office, but from home? And as new branch offices come up, how do we make sure that we get them into the fold and applications are rolled out in a scalable manner? And of course, we talked about security. How do we make sure users demand, obviously, secure experience? And we've seen that ransomware and all of those things, supply chain attacks have significantly increased in the last year and a half. And so security continues to be a critical need in today's modern networks. And from an underlying network perspective, your admins, your DevOps, your SecOps teams, they need to be empowered to quickly create those experiences, the simplicity, reliability, scalability, and security, right? So they need to, and how do they get that? Through obviously more automation, more API-based integrations, right? They need to be able to automate and standardize through cloud-native APIs and integrations. They need 5 nines reliability, right? With the flexibility of the cloud environments, right? They need more cost-efficient solutions, but they also need that 5 nines reliability. One of the ways to achieve scale is through microservices and cloud-native architectures. So this is where it delivers scale when right-size the deployment is what is a term we use, right? So microservices can be built. They need microservices built on a cloud-native platform, so they can deliver services when and where they need it, and bring down services when they don't need it. I think that's important as well. And of course, for security, they need to be able to secure any device, anywhere, anytime, and help with faster remediation. And that's super critical for SecOps. SecOps teams keep getting bombarded with thousands of alerts from 10, 20, 30 different tools that they use on the network. And so they need to be able to make sense of those alerts, not just chasing them without any context. They need to understand which events are super critical and need to be addressed immediately, and which events can wait an hour or two. So SecOps teams definitely are overburdened and they need help with prioritization. So now we come to kind of what Infoblox provides from a foundational perspective. We saw that, the modern kind of decentralized networks had some challenges. And so what Infoblox provides is what's called a modernized foundation. So your core network services, your DNS, DHCP, IP address management, all of those can be provided consistently on premises in like an HQ or a data center. The same services can be provided in your branch offices. The same services can be provided at home and also for cloud workloads. So what this gives admins is this notion of regaining control in a centralized fashion. They're able to manage all the services, in a centralized way. And we have certain product lines to cover that. We have what's called NIOS or GRID that handles DNS, DHCP, and IP address management for on-prem HQ type environments. And then we have what's called Blocks 1 DDI, which is our cloud native, like I talked about earlier, cloud native microservices-based architecture that provides DDI services. It's from the cloud to your branch offices, right? But both are interconnected and integrated, so customers get the single unified experience. The other thing they get is with the on-prem and the cloud managed services, they get full visibility of not just workloads and data and devices and users who are in the office, but also at home. They get visibility on cloud resources and cloud workloads, as well as remote offices. And finally, expanding security. So I don't know how many of you guys are aware, but DNS is a perfect first line of defense against a lot of the known threats, including ransomware, phishing, exploits, right? Data exfiltration can happen over DNS. So when you leverage threat intel and analytics on a DNS server, you are actually detecting and blocking a lot of the malicious activity, including command and control communications, early in the kill chain, even before a next-gen firewall would see it. And this DNS-based security can be provided on premises and also delivered from the cloud. For example, I work from home significantly. My DNS goes to Blocks 1 threat defense solution in the cloud, which is a DNS-based security solution from Infoblox. It's cloud delivered. It's a SaaS service. So if I go by mistake to a website that's hosting ransomware, the solution is going to block me from even visiting that website, right? Let's say let's say I had a device that was already infected because I was not because I did not have that solution. And now I join I have that solution that's now protecting me. And my device, if it's already infected, it could be doing command and control communications to known bad destinations. Again, this solution is going to block that CNC request, and it's going to notify my network admin or my security admin that my laptop has been compromised, right? So that level of detection and protection is available with what we call as Blocks 1 threat defense, which is the cloud-delivered DNS-based security. So from a strategy perspective, the way to offer users the experience that we talked about, the scalability, simplicity, reliability, security, is leveraging the hybrid multi-cloud paradigm, right? Most companies are using a hybrid or multi-cloud approach. And so our philosophy is to integrate with the hybrid multi-cloud technologies that customers are already using, right? Operational simplicity, DevOps deployment model, right, is super critical for enterprises today. So again, we can integrate with a lot of those DevOps tools that provide that operational simplicity. And I talked about cloud native as a platform. So Infoblox provides networking and security services as a service. So delivered on our cloud native platform that we talked about. So just in terms of solutions overview, we operate in 3 markets. DDI or DNS, DHCP, IP address management is the full expansion of the acronym DDI. And again, this delivers mission critical core network services, your DNS connectivity, IP address allocation and management. IPAM is one of those databases that provides kind of single source of truth for anything that's connecting to the network, right? And so that's available with our portfolio. We also do load balancing on DNS. So, and of course, we provide discovery. So we can discover anything that's connecting to the network with our solution. From a security perspective, I talked about DNS as a first line of defense. So our solution helps strengthen an organization's security posture. It also integrates with a lot of the security tools that customers, partners, they already use in their networks. There are things like next-gen firewalls, endpoint security, vulnerability scanners, NAC solutions, right? SOAR, SIM. We are not like one, a siloed tool. The DNS security solution integrates with a lot of the tools that customers and partners already use. And then for edge services, so this is where we talk about small offices, branch offices, remote offices. Here, our cloud-delivered DNS solutions can provide the cloud-native network and security at the edge, right? Both our DDI in the cloud and DNS security in the cloud can be leveraged for securing your edge locations. So what this does is all the solutions that I mentioned provide what's called control, automation, and security, right? We talked about regaining control, knowing that what is connecting to the network, having that single pane of glass of knowing everything that's on the network discovery. All of those things bring back control to the IT admin, right? There's a lot of automation built into the solutions as well, including automation of IPAM and DNS workflows, ecosystem enrichment, and also DevOps SecOps integration. From a security perspective, there is, I talked about DNS as first layer of defense. There's also a lot of data in the DDI platform that can be leveraged to understand scope of a breach. For example, if a SecOps team just looks at the IPAM metadata, like things like, okay, where in my network is that compromised device, right? Which part of the network, which subnet? Also, through integration with AD, they can find out who that device is assigned to. And then using DHCP fingerprint information, they could know what OS is running on the device. So you will know whether it is a Windows device or is it a Mac device? Is it a smartphone, a tablet, things like that. So because they'll be running iOS. So you will know the type of device and you will know this, where it is, geolocation, things like that. So you can identify if the compromised device is, a server that is running critical financial applications, or is the compromised device a contractor's laptop? So that level of context you can get with using DDI data for security. We also talked about detecting and blocking malware and ransomware, and I will kind of go into a little bit of detail on what that looks like. So from a cloud-native platform perspective, the platform is called Blox One. It's completely managed from the cloud. It's an open, extensible platform, API-based services. Again, it helps with the hybrid deployment, right? On-premises and cloud-based deployments. It provides scale. So as soon as a new branch office needs to get opened up, you can turn on services for that branch location, and that can happen quickly, right, at scale. Or you can turn down services if some locations are getting closed. So that flexibility is available with the platform. It offers HA and resiliency, and of course, security. The Blox One platform is provided, Blox One platform is built on top of the AWS infrastructure from an IaaS perspective. And the platform itself leverages Docker and, kind of microservices, Kubernetes type technologies to really provide that scale and extensibility. And we have services on top of that platform, which includes Blox One DDI and Blox One Threat Defense that I mentioned earlier. From a customer perspective, there is a single portal that's available that customers can log into and, provision services, do the configuration, make sure that you have all the right subscriptions, and problem and incident management. So everything is accessible through a really easy to use kind of customer portal UI. And from a hybrid multi-cloud perspective, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of customers leverage hybrid multi-cloud technologies. They're not just doing things in the data center. They use AWS. They use Azure. For private cloud, they may use VMware, things like that. So the solution from Infoblox integrates with all of those technologies to make sure that users get that consistent DNS, DHCP, and IPAM services and automation. So automation of DNS, DHCP, and IPAM in all those environments as well. And from a DevOps perspective, we offer kind of user device information to easily triage security events. So that goes back to the information I talked about in terms of where the compromised device is, what type of device, who it's assigned to. We talked about automatic discovery of assets. So again, we provide a discovery of physical as well as virtual assets. That's not just physical, and everything is automated from a DHCP IPAM perspective. So even in highly dynamic environments, in multi-cloud environments, the DevOps and SecOps teams get that simplicity. So when you look at DNS security, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and kind of double down on DNS security, right? And I know security is a top concern for a lot of people, and especially in this work from anywhere hybrid workplace environments. And so how do you make sure that the security follows the user? And one of the ways to do that is to leverage DNS-based security. 90% of attacks, malware, ransomware, you name it, they depend on DNS at some stage of their infection, right? Either to infect or to spread laterally in the networks, or to do additional malicious activities like download encryption software for if it's a ransomware type attack, or exfiltrate data. And all of this happens through the DNS channel. And when you look at other security tools that are out there, none of them look at DNS pathway or the DNS protocol. And so what happens is when you leverage DNS, which you already need for connectivity, when you leverage that for security, you are blocking 90% of those known attacks, right? And again, it provides a consistent security. It doesn't matter what type of device. It could be an IoT device, but that IoT device is connecting to the network where there is a DNS server. And so when you put security on top of that DNS server, or when you do DNS security on that server, you are securing that IoT environment as well. So consistent security for any app, any OS, any device. We actually had a customer, a director of SecOps from an insurance organization, who put it perfectly. He said, blocking at the DNS level is what I call protocol agnostic, right? We don't care what's doing, we don't care what device, that is going to get blocked at the DNS. The way to do DNS security is through leveraging threat intel. So threat intelligence is, as you know, known bad destinations, known bad neighborhoods on the internet. If this website has a bad reputation, don't allow the DNS resolution to happen to that website. But you should also complement threat intel with analytics. So this is where you look at DNS queries that are going out to the internet and check for things like data exfiltration. And here you're looking for certain patterns as these DNS requests are going out to the internet. And you're checking for certain patterns that will flag it as data exfil, or lookalike domains, for example, is another type of attack where the domain is configured to look like the original domain, but it's misspelled a little bit. So behavioral analytics on DNS queries can help detect those type of threats as well. So the DNS security solution that Infoblox offers is called Blox One Threat Defense, and it can identify all devices across the enterprise. It can improve productivity of SecOps, like we talked about, protection everywhere, right? It acts as a signal for security events. And because it integrates with a lot of the security tools that customers and partners may have already invested in, it helps reduce the total cost of defense. It gives them better ROI on the investments that have already been made. Because, for example, if you look at next-gen firewalls, if you implement DNS security, the amount of malicious traffic that's going to next-gen firewalls reduces significantly. So you're preserving the processing power of that solution. And then when you look at integrations with other security tools, you're making these security tools more effective. For example, you can automatically trigger a vulnerability scan when a DNS security solution detects something malicious. You can you can have automated network access control policies set up based on any detection at the DNS level. You can also raise a ServiceNow ticket, for example, if you know that this laptop is making bad DNS requests. So all of those things makes the ecosystem more effective, and it also improves the ROI of the tools that people have already invested in. So before I wrap up, I'm going to talk about two case studies, more recent ones. This particular customer was a satellite communication firm, and they were a global provider of broadband services for military and commercial markets. And one of their main needs from a business perspective was that they had global operations, obviously, but they were struggling with outages. They needed better reliability and, of course, security, right? So the outages were actually significantly causing some loss of revenue as well. And so what they did was they went with Infoblox's cloud-first, kind of cloud-managed, cloud-delivered DNS, DHCP solutions, and they went with a hybrid deployment, so on-prem plus cloud. So they got the efficiency of the cloud and the reliability of the on-prem as a fallback, and so they were able to get consistent and reliable DNS services and core services for their global operations, right? Global environments. So they got reliability, and they were able to manage all of these things from a central location as well. And this is a security use case. If you think about security, especially from a bank's perspective, right? They have a lot of compliance requirements. They are dealing with critical, sensitive information. And so this particular bank actually had multiple divisions: credit cards, consumer banking, and commercial banking. And they had a challenge. So they had their assets distributed between cloud, on-premises, and on employee devices. And they were using disparate security for each of those locations. Being a financial firm, they were constantly a target for attacks, as we all know financial firms are. And recently they had an incident where there was an unauthorized access of PII information. So they leveraged DNS security to provide consistent security for their critical assets, not just in the premises, but also in the cloud and on employee devices. So they were able to address that particular challenge of disparate security, and they just leverage consistent DNS security to minimize risk, to prevent any data exfiltration that happens over DNS, and to monitor all assets wherever they are, on-prem, in the cloud, or remote, right? So they were able to do that with this DNS security solution. So from a company perspective, Infoblox has 12,000 plus customers. We work with thousands of partners globally in all regions. And we have 50% market share in the DNS, DHCP, and IP address management space. We have, as I mentioned, we are a global company. We operate in 133 countries. And our net promoter score is one of the highest in the industry as well. So we've got tons of Fortune 1000 customers, Forbes 200 customers in our portfolio, and and I think we empower organizations, all of these organizations. These are huge enterprises, to continue to keep their networks reliable and secure. From an innovation perspective, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, Infoblox is a 20-year-old company, and we've innovated along the way. We started with what was simple DNS appliances. We added what's called a grid, which put all these appliances into a highly distributed, reliable, and disaster recovery-based architecture. We included integrations with a lot of private cloud and virtualization-based technologies. We added our first DNS security solution back in 2013, and that has expanded to Blox One Threat Defense more recently. So initially, the security solution was on-prem only. So now we have the Blox One solution, which is SaaS, cloud-based, so we can provide protection everywhere for all users. And more recently, we added the cloud-managed DDI services as well. We are a private company. We're owned by two PE firms, Vista Equity Partners, as well as Warburg Pincus. And this just kind of shows you that our customer base is across all verticals, right? So it's definitely a horizontal set of solutions for retail, finance, government, right? We do a lot of work on the security front with government agencies in terms of partnerships as well, and of course manufacturing, healthcare, etc. Higher ed is another big vertical for us, where a lot of higher ed companies use Infoblox for security as well as networking. So with that, I would like to thank MAPS for giving us the opportunity to present in this event today. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to MAPS or to Infoblox, and we will get them answered. Thank you for listening.
Agradecemos a KRUPA SRIVATSAN por su participación en el IT Solutions Day.